Hello, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Saturday, January 3rd. This is episode 90 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Hit another milestone episode, 90, only 10 more away from 100 as we continue on here through the 2025 season. Happy New Year to everybody out there. 2026 is upon us. We have hit the final week of the NFL regular season, week 18. 2 games today, rest of the games tomorrow. Game 272 tomorrow night in Pittsburgh, an AFC North battle for the division and the playoffs between the Ravens and the Steelers. Lots on the line this weekend, lots to discuss this week. Make sure to please like and subscribe here on YouTube. We appreciate all the support all season long. We've hit the finish line, but now we get set for the final playoff standings. We get set for the final playoff movement this weekend, divisions, playoff spots, all that stuff. Once it's finalized, get ready for the playoffs, wild card, divisional round, AFC, NFC championship, and so on and so forth, all the way to Santa Clara and the Super Bowl this season. So lots to discuss. DiMari, Happy New Year. How's it going, man?
Happy New Year. I'm doing pretty well. First and foremost, before we even get started, 90 episodes. It's been a while, so I just wanted to thank you because I reached out on Twitter a very long time ago. This is kind of your thing, just for hey, I just want to get on the show just once, and it turned into 90 episodes later. Something I enjoy doing every weekend. So I want to thank you for that, just allowing me to come on and just making this a weekly thing between the two of us. I greatly appreciate it. But pretty great week. We got some meaningful football games this week. Kind of love that. It's so great when you can wake up on Saturday or Sunday and you're not watching Joe Milton and Mitch Trubisky, who you just mentioned off air. We're not watching a bunch of backups and a bunch of second and third stringers. We got some good football. 3 very good games. 2 today. 1 tomorrow. Wrap up the regular season. We're going to see over in Pittsburgh and Baltimore. So it is such a great week. Playoff implications are kind of here more than ever. So I'm very excited for this slate, but lots of news, a lot of game breakdowns for today. So let's get into it.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun today. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun doing the show. It's funny because I think we actually maybe even have more episodes than 90 because we started it during the 2023 season, and then the official name change came January or February of 24. So
Yeah.
it's been, good solid 2 years now. That's almost 2 years now of doing this. It has been 2 years because we started 2023 season and then the official name now 90 episodes. So been a lot of fun every single week. And we continue on here with, like you said, a big week 18 slate, a lot of meaningful games. We'll get the Mitch Trubisky, Brady Cook matchup tomorrow. But before that, we get some actual good games today, games that mean a lot. So we'll break down some of them. We'll get to the games today. Then we'll get to game 272 tomorrow night and break down some of the other playoff picture stuff and the standings and where things are at as we head into this weekend. But we'll start with the first game on this weekend slate, and that is the NFC South on the line this weekend between the Bucks and the Panthers. It's simple for the Panthers. They win, they're in, they clinch the division, they're the 4 seed, and they'll welcome whoever the 5 seed is in the NFC. From the Bucks' perspective, not as simple. If they win, they still need some help. They would then need the Saints to beat the Falcons to get in. So Bucks have put themselves in a situation now where, they've lost after a good start at 6-2. They've won just 1 game over their last 7, and they're now 7-9. They lost to the Panthers 2 weeks ago. They lost to Quinn Ewers in Miami last week. But they still get another chance. So before we really dive into both sides of the ball for the Bucks and the Panthers, what are your thoughts on just where both teams are at? Because both teams are coming off of losses. Now, the Bucks, it's been 4 straight losses, and it's 1-7 in their last 8. But this is a Panthers team that did have an opportunity. They've been very good at home this season. They had an opportunity to take care of business last week against Seattle and clinch the division and have this game be meaningless, but they couldn't get the job done. So where do you think both teams stand just heading into this one this afternoon in Tampa?
I mean, if you're the Bucks and you're a Bucks fan, you're biting your nails. If you would have told a Bucks fan when they were sitting at 6-2, last week of the season, you need a win and you need some help, you They probably would have thought we were crazy, but this is the joy of the NFL when your team is not the one dealing with it. It just shows how important how a week, 8, week 9, week 6, those games where you kind of find meaningless that you drop and you feel like it's no big deal. The importance that it can have come later on in the season. So for Tampa Bay, I mean, this is both teams. This is for all the marbles, but I think there's way much more at stake for Tampa considering how they started. We talked about it a few episodes ago. The top bowls need to go if they end up dropping this game. How different the teams look without Liam Cohen. So, I mean, for Tampa, this could be the start of disaster if they drop this one. And I'm honestly kind of just looking into it more, doing some notes this morning and just over the course of last week. I think if Tampa loses this game or Tampa just doesn't get into the playoffs, we could see some changes in the front office. And I think it's going to be a time to start that, especially how that went. And from the Carolina side of it, expectations weren't too high for Carolina. This is a team we both thought would be better coming into the season. I think we had them around the 7-8 win mark as is. So they're kind of right on track for what we thought. But I feel like for Carolina and for Carolina fans, you love it. This is what you brought Bryce Young in for. I mean, obviously you're hoping later on, maybe definitely not this year, but just a time later on, maybe a few seasons from now where this team already has this division clinched in week 16 or whatever the case is. But this is what you drafted Bryce Young for. It's what you brought him in to do, is to be able to go on the road or these late season games and get a W and be the franchise guy. That's all they need is Bryce Young to show, I am the franchise guy. You made the right choice. So for a young guy who has dealt with so much turmoil like throughout his career to start, I think this is a great position for him to be in. I mean, even if they drop this one, you kind of get some of that feeling like, hey, we can do this come next year. We talked about it before with the Lions and how they kind of have been since then, and we're starting to see it with the Panthers. So, I mean, even if they end up dropping, shout out to the Panthers for a heck of a year and just kind of bouncing back and showing the league like, hey, we are going to be serious for years to come.
Yeah, the Panthers come back, and that's where we could start kind of with what to expect from them, because they're the underdogs in terms of odds. 3-point favorites is Tampa Bay at home. But the story of Carolina is it kind of goes back to late last season where we saw them show some progress, right? They went on the road in Philly. They were very competitive. If Leggett didn't have that drop, they probably go on and win that game. They then beat the Chiefs at home. They had a ton of overtime, or they beat the, they had, what was it, late? They lost to the Chiefs at home on the game-winning field goal, but they were competitive. Then they went to overtime against Tampa. They had that crazy overtime win where they put up like 36 points against Arizona, and then they beat Atlanta the final week of the season overtime. Point being, they didn't win all those games, but they were in overtime. They were competitive. They were competitive against some really good teams. They were competitive against Philly on the road, a tough opponent. After Bryce Young got benched to open up the season, right? They got blown out against New Orleans when New Orleans was on that 2-game Derek Carr crazy run. And then, of course, that fizzled out. And then they got blown out against the Chargers. Andy Dalton took over. Bryce Young came back. And what looked like a disastrous year one in Carolina under Dave Canales and David Tepper ownership, who continued to feel the heat, late season from them last year has been able to carry into this year. And if you're a Panthers fan, like you said, you're spot on. You just have to be thrilled to be in this position, because this has been a team that's been the laughingstock of the NFL for the last couple of years, right? They had the 2-15 season in 2023. They haven't made the playoffs since 2017 with Ron Rivera. They've been on a little bit of a long drought here where they haven't even been competitive. You had the whole Matt Rule that failed. Steve Wilkes then took over as the interim. Then it was Frank Reich, who didn't last the full season. Now it's Dave Canales and all of these different guys. And then Bryce Young didn't look like the guy. And then you saw CJ Stroud get picked right behind him, take his team out of the playoffs for 3 straight years. And as a Panthers fan, you're thinking, how is this happening to us? Like, you take the number 1 overall quarterback and he's not living up to the expectations, but now he's been able to show continued progress. And he's been one of the rare examples of where a benching has actually worked, because since he got benched, he has been better. So just to be in this situation, So I guess we could start with Bryce Young. What have you seen from him this season where it hasn't been all perfect? It hasn't been necessarily pretty and big numbers. He's not in the MVP conversation. He's not going out there throwing 35 touchdowns. But we talked about it earlier this season, before the season started. If he can be around the 20 to 25 touchdown range and near 3,000 yards, you feel pretty good about the chances of Carolina just being competitive. And he's been that 21 touchdowns, 2,745 yards. And these last couple of weeks, last week was a little bit rough, but prior to that, he had the big game against the Rams at home. Then he had the big game against Tampa. He's come up big when needed most late in the season here.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty spot on with that. Just dating back to last week. Last week was rough. Seattle's a very good defense, but 54 yards against any NFL team, I don't think it gets it done unless you're Max Brosmeyer, who threw for 57. But just going off of that, I mean, he had a rough week last week. It happens. That's the NFL. You are going to see it with every NFL quarterback. But I agree with you. I mean, this is pretty much where Bryce needs to be. And again, it's progress. Even though the jump from year one to year two wasn't huge, it wasn't Mahomes like, it's progress. And that's what you want to see from any quarterback year by year, especially for someone like you said who got benched last year, where that didn't affect him. He bounced back, finished last year out strong. This year he's been shaky, but in big games where they needed him, Dallas, Green Bay, you mentioned Tampa, you mentioned the Rams, he has been huge, whether that is getting it done with his arm and he is lighting the field up, or whether that's game managing. And there's nothing wrong with game managing as a franchise quarterback. Some games you have to. It's almost like a shooter in the NBA. You're not going to be hot every single game. Sometimes you got to know when to pass it up. Sometimes you need to, stop jacking up 32 footers and get in the lane. So it's the same thing for an NFL quarterback, where he's understanding where certain things aren't working. I am going to find other ways to impact the game. And I think he's done that very well. Luckily for Carolina, Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard have been a very good 1-2 punch as well to take some off of Bryce Young. So I think right now, like you said, we mentioned it during the offseason, 20, 25 touchdowns. He's at 21. Probably thinking he throws 2 today. So let's say he finished it with 23 in the regular season. That's right where you want him to be before he takes another jump next year. So, I mean, shout out Bryce Young just for kind of beating the odds after it looked like a train wreck to start.
Yeah, he looked dead in the water, and you throw 200 yards, let's say 220 maybe today, let's say on the higher end, 2 touchdowns. That's around 2,900 yards, and like you said, 22 touchdowns. That's kind of where I think a lot of people expected him to be at. He's still young. He still has had his fair share of turnovers. The 10 touchdowns you'd still like to see drop a bit. But then you look at next year as the year where, okay, now you can go and throw 28, 29, get to that 30 touchdown mark, limit the interceptions, get over 3,000 yards, and really take that next step. You mentioned Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, who's been really big this season for them. Rico Dowdle as well. And you look at this game, you have to expect him to play a big role in this one. He's kind of been on this, just this crazy run since earlier in the year when Hubbard went down. But you look back the last time these two teams met, Dowdle didn't have a ton of opportunities, didn't have a massive day. Carolina's a team on the rush for 101 yards. Now, it was enough to take care of business, and this was also a Bucs team that obviously struggled that day. I believe Emeka Egbuka only had 1 catch. He's really kind of taken a back seat from where he was earlier in the year. Feels like today the run game is a massive importance for this Carolina team, where if Rico Dowdle can have the success that he's had this season, especially on the road, you feel that's a pretty big path for them to find a way to pick up a win in the passing game as well, getting Rico Dowdle involved.
I'm very glad you brought up the run game, because this is for both teams, and we'll get in Tampa a little later as far as the run game. But again, you got to try to take most of it off of Bryce Young, and just get Dowdle going. And I agree. I mean, along with Dowdle, you got to get McMillan going. You got to get Tech going. It's no reason. I don't know. Again, Seattle's a very tough defense, but no reason why your number one receiver should have 1 catch and I think 2 targets through quarters of football last week. That is not going to win you a game in Tampa today. So they
especially
need to get him
against,
involved. Yeah,
and
a
not to
very
cut
good.
you off, but especially against a defense like Seattle.
Yeah, which I mean, yeah, a great point. Because Seattle's defense again, that's where those type of games you want to get your playmakers involved very early to take it off your quarterback to build the confidence. You're going into that game, you know how ferocious that defense is. It can get you shaky. It shakes you up. Quarterbacks won't admit it, but it definitely does. But for today, a Tampa defense that we have seen struggle all year, especially on, I guess what you want to call this losing streak. The defense has been bad on the ground. They've been bad in the air. They've been bad. So you want to get Tech going early. You want to get Dowdle going early. You mentioned him in the pass game. He's been a very good pass catcher at the backfield this year. You want to get them started very early, and that is going to be the key. So you brought up Dowdle. I brought up Tech. So for each one of these games, I have brought up I called it the make it money X factors. Make it money because these are the guys that you are going to need to have very big games to get what you need to get done. And from Carolina side of it, I had Dowdle and Tech. So thank you for bringing up Dowdle in that instance.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Ted, and we can move on to Tampa side of things because the run games are going to be very important in this game. Yeah. Did you start Ted last week in fantasy? I think I may have misguided you. That was my bad.
As Wan'Dale Robinson was cooking on my bench, yes. I'm watching Ted struggle.
Ted has had a very, you would call it strange rookie year because overall the numbers aren't bad for a rookie. I mean, he goes out there today and if he puts up, he's 61 yards away from a 1,000-yard season. He's top 15 and he's out of 7 touchdowns. Like you look at his whole body of work, he's probably going to hit 70 receptions. It's been a solid year for the first round pick, but it's been incredibly inconsistent. And you mentioned the one catch for 4 targets last week in Seattle. It's so important. And you mentioned, both of those guys kind of being your X factors. It's so important in a game like this to get him involved because you look back at the last game against Tampa, he went out there at 6 catches, 73 yards and that touchdown. He had that big touchdown, the 43-yard catch, the only catch of the day for a touchdown against the Rams, which was enough for him to have a productive fantasy day. He was very frustrating fantasy receiver, I'm sure. But when he's been at his best and him and Bryce Young are clicking and he's at that 6 to 8 range of catches, that's where Carolina gives themselves the best chance of winning. When he had the 130 against Atlanta and 2 touchdowns, they won that game in overtime. The 73 and a touchdown, the 2 touchdowns against Dallas. He's like, it's huge for Bryce Young to get him involved today, and they should be able to. So Dowdle, Tet McMillan, both of those guys, you look for them to have productive days, specifically Dowdle after, a game where they didn't run the ball as much as I think you'd look for them to in the first meeting against the Bucs just a couple weeks ago. Now, shifting on to Tampa side, it's funny because, and that's what makes this week 18 so great, is nothing else matters. Everything that's happened in the previous 17 weeks, it's all behind you. But the difference in these two teams, the energy between these two teams, right? A Carolina team that we just talked about how they're on the up. You should be really happy if you're a Panthers fan, even if they obviously be disappointed if they lose today, but you should be very confident about them moving forward. A Bucs perspective, this kind of feels like this could be the end of, I don't know if I want to call this era, but this formation, whatever. Now, there have been reports that Jason Licht, the general manager, and Todd Bowles are safe. Diana Rossini reported today, even if they do lose, I still have a hard time believing that because I'm sorry, there's no defending going 1-8 and blowing the playoffs with this roster. I know there's been injuries and stuff like that, but I also think it's alarming that Liam Cohen's gone and the offense has regressed. Yeah. That's also very alarming. And that's an indictment on Todd Bowles and his coaching staff. What do you feel? I guess what should the confidence level be of a Bucs fan, and just your thoughts on, where they stand coming to this game? The run game this season has been, Rashad White or Bucky Irving rather has missed, a ton of time. They've had some tough times, consistency with the injuries. Mike Evans has been hurt. Godwin was hurt. Baker Mayfield was hurt. Emeka Ibuka started the season strong. He's now taking a little bit of a backseat. This is like a team with all the momentum and a team with no momentum.
Confidence level, I mean, I would probably say a 5. And I only say it's a 5 because they're currently at home. If they were in Carolina, it would be a lot lower than that. But that home field advantage is going to be big. But just to piggyback off of Bowles and, why I think that confidence level should be where it's at, the offense has not been good. Liam Cohen left, and that is way more noticeable now that he's gone. The offense has been bad. They're inconsistent. The turnovers for Baker has been bad. I mean, he hasn't actually looked good dating back to, I think, week 9 against New England. After that, he's been terrible. I think 8 of his last 10 interceptions have all come since week 11 against Buffalo. So he's turning the ball over too much. And since that Buffalo's game, he's only played one game without an interception, and that was the Cardinals game. So that is alarming. And I know you're talking about one interception here, one year he has a few with 2 of them, but those change momentum. Those change impact, like they impact games in multiple ways, as you can see. And Baker has just not looked sharp. I mean, this was a guy last year, I think, 45 touchdowns, if I remember. And now we're talking about 25, or he's in the 20s. Like, he's not looking good. This is what, I hate to say it because I like Baker so much, but this is what Baker looked like in Cleveland when everyone was just like, this is not going to work out. He's going back to that old shell of himself.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. 41 touchdowns last year, 16 picks. So the interceptions were up, but he was over 40 touchdowns. Yeah. You could throw 15, 16 interceptions. Nobody's going to care if you're throwing over 4,000 yards, well over 4,000 yards and 40-plus touchdowns. Mahomes, I think, in his 50 touchdown season threw like 12 picks. Yeah. But if you're throwing 20 touchdowns and 10 picks, it's a little bit different. Now, not all 20 touchdown, 10 pick seasons are created the same because, Bryce Young is throwing 10 interceptions this year and just a bit over 20 21 touchdowns, but he's in a different spot in his career than Baker Mayfield. You're so right, though, because I was actually going to bring that up, and I understand he's been banged up, and I get there's been a lot of pieces around him that's been missing, and they have just dealt with a plethora of injuries all over the offensive side of the football. But Baker Mayfield has looked like Brown's Baker Mayfield, where there's a lot of those turnovers, a lot of the dumb turnovers, a lot of just missed throws, and a lot of just like okay play. Like, you don't look at Baker Mayfield. Last season, you looked at Baker Mayfield, we talked about it as he could have gotten more MVP consideration, a guy that can elevate. Baker Mayfield right now just looks like just an okay quarterback. That's really what he is. And I think what's so alarming is the completion percentage, how far that has dropped. It hasn't been this low since his Cleveland days. And that's very concerning because it felt like he was a different player with Tampa than he was in Cleveland, than he was in Carolina. Ever since that moment he had it with the Rams and then taking over with Tampa, it's been all uphill, or it's been all upward trajectory. This season's been a big dip. And I think you do have to wonder, now you look at Trevor Lawrence and what he's been able to do with Liam Cohen. You do have to wonder if it's kind of the Liam Cohen effect last season, how good he was. In terms of this game, though, the Bucs to me have to get Emeka Ibuka more involved. And I get Godwin's been back and I get Mike Evans is back, but the fact that Ibuka has been essentially, it feels like relegated from their game plan is, to me, has to change today. You agree?
I agree. X factors, Ibuka and Bucky Irvin, and just slightly on Bucky Irvin before I get into the Ibuka angle of it. We talked about the run game with Carolina, but Tampa's run game is pitiful. I mean, they've had one game where they've had a back go for 100 yards, and that was Sean Tucker against Buffalo. Have not had a 100-yard rusher for a back at all this season. That's a problem. And I mean, as good as Baker is, we understand how if Tampa's going to beat you, it's going to be off the arm of Baker anyway. So you don't need 150 yards, on the ground from a back, but you need balance. So part of that issue with Baker and the completion percentage is he's pressing because the offense can't get flowing because the offense can't run the ball. So now everything is on the arm of Baker, and he is back to the Cleveland days, trying to force a lot of passes because he wants to get the offense going. They're struggling. So I don't want to put all the blame on Baker. Like, yes, some of the interceptions have been bad. They've been terrible decision making, but at the same time, I mean, when you've had one running back all year rush for 100 yards, you're not going to win a lot of games that way. And for them to even be in this spot with how bad the run game is, you got to give Baker some credit. You got to give Todd Bowles some credit, even though they have lost games. But I'm right there with you on Egbuka. I mean, this is a guy who took the league by storm. The first few weeks of the season, I mean, him and JSN were having like I don't know, there was just like a miraculous run between the two of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, like now it's kind of like he's just a guy in the offense and he doesn't matter, which it's also funny because last week there's a report that the Bucks were saying, hey, we want to get him involved very early, get him flowing. And I don't think he had a target through like the second quarter. I could be wrong. I didn't watch a lot of the Bucks game, but he wasn't involved. As usual, he wasn't as involved. So I'm right there with you. I mean, for Carolina, if you look at this matchup, you look at the defense, J.C. Horn is probably going to follow around Mike Evans. You need someone else to step up. Egbuka is your next guy up after Godwin, who is still kind of had a great year, a decent year since coming back, but still not the usual Chris Godwin that we're used to seeing coming off the injury. So you need that Egbuka that you had to start of the year where it completely took the league by storm. And that is how you're going to win that game, is getting the ball to him, is getting the ball to Bucky Irvin, again, my other X factor, who is a very good back as well, out the backfield, very versatile. If one of those two do not have good games, Tampa does not stand a chance in this game today.
Yeah, and you mentioned J.C. Horn, second in the NFL this season with the 5 interceptions. Had a good first meeting with this Tampa team. But yeah, the Egbuka stuff, like this was a guy that was running away with Rookie of the Year. He was dominating earlier in the season. From a touchdown standpoint to just a yard standpoint, like he was taking over, and he was taking over, especially in the absence of Mike Evans, and it looked like he had the real deal. And we talked a lot about Egbuka. We were both very high on him going into this season. And I still think he's going to be a very good receiver in this league, but the last couple of weeks have been really concerning. He only had one catch in the previous meeting against Carolina, which it's funny that these two teams just met 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's so close together. It's weird to say the previous meeting when it just happened, essentially December 21st. But only one catch in that game. He only had 3 catches last week against Miami. Miami's terrible. They've given up. They're starting Quinn Ewers, and you couldn't get him involved. You look at Egbuka's production as Egbuka has dropped in production, the Bucks have lost games. And I think that's a very, very alarming correlation that Tampa needs to look at and understand and go into this game and have a better result. And you have to also get the run game going too. You mentioned Bucky Irving. I think that is very important in this game. Mix up the pass and the run. I mean, we'll do our underdog picks, but do you have a pick in this game?
I don't, but I don't know who wins this one.
Because I do think spoiling it, I think Panthers +3 is the move for me.
I looked at it, I thought about it, and I might change it. As of now, I don't have that, but again, it's the home field advantage that makes me lean Tampa, but Tampa's played home a lot this year, and they have not won at home. So again, that confidence level in Tampa is not too high right now. But I think the Bucks will win in a close one.
To me, this Bucks team, and it's not exactly the same, but to me, this Bucks team feels a lot like when you look at recent collapses, kind of the 2023 Eagles, where now 2023 Eagles were 10-1, and the Bucks were 6-2. So the Eagles collapse happened after week 12. The Bucks was, week 9 essentially. So a little bit different. But, the Eagles went 1-5, and now they actually ended up losing to the Bucks in the wild card round. But like as much as everybody kept saying, okay, get back to what you were earlier in the year, get in, find your rhythm. Like the Bucks to me are just so far gone that I just don't have much faith in them flipping a switch right now and going out there and getting back to the team they were earlier in the year, but could be wrong. We'll see how it all plays out here. Now, with that being said, we'll move on to the nightcap here on Saturday night, and that is the Niners and the Seahawks. This is going to be an awesome one. These two teams, we talked about the Bucks and the Panthers just meeting. These two teams haven't met since week 1. And a lot has changed since week 1 because, first of all, the Niners were relatively healthy. This was a disappointing Sam Darnold game. I remember the Sam Darnold overreactions. Now we can call them overreactions coming out of this game where, he didn't have a touchdown, didn't throw any picks, but he didn't have a very good day. JSN still went off. That was like his start of his monster season. But as a whole, it was an ugly day. Purdy didn't play well. It was a defensive battle. Darnold didn't look great. And I remember a lot of people saying, this is what Sam Darnold is without Kevin O'Connell. Fast forward now, 17 weeks later, these two teams meet again last week of the season with the 1 seed in the NFC on the line. It's simple. Niners win, they get the 1 seed. Seattle wins or ties, they get the 1 seed. So it's a win, and the playoffs run through Seattle or Santa Clara. And you look at San Francisco, that's the host of the Super Bowl this year. Could this might be the last time San Francisco has to travel if they are, they'll be home tonight. San Francisco, might not have to travel the rest of this season if they win this game tonight, because if they do get all the way to the Super Bowl, we'll see another home team in the Super Bowl. So just your thoughts on both these teams as we enter into this matchup. A Seattle team that is just tons of credit to Mike McDonald and what he's been able to do year 2. Tons of credit to Sam Darnold. And a massive credit to Kyle Shanahan, who we talked about could be looked at as the underrated coach of the year, because you went into the season with San Francisco questioning a little bit where they were at after what happened last season, the continuing disappointments in the playoffs, all the injuries, and yet they're 12-4 in striking distance of the NFC West crown and the 1 seed.
Well, first I want to start off. For years, I have bashed Brock Purdy and how he's a system quarterback, and it's the guys around him. And Brock Purdy, after abysmal performances from Ted McMillan and Josh Jacobs, got me a fantasy championship. After being the last seed, I went back through it. I got into the playoffs the very last week before the playoffs. Snuck in, beat the 3 seed, the 2 seed, the 1 seed in that order. All thanks to the back of Brock Purdy. So I will never slander Brock Purdy ever again. I just want to start off with that. But talking about Brock Purdy, that's what I'm going to start off with. Both of these teams are coming in on a 6-game win streak. And since Purdy's been back, they are averaging 35.7, but we're rounding up. 36 points per game. Like, they have been absolutely on fire. And he's sharing the ball around. It's Jawan Jennings. It's Tongus. Who is Tongus? But just, their other tight end behind Kittle, McCaffrey doing McCaffrey thing. So they've been playing great ball. Since he's been back, they've been playing great ball. And I think he is an important factor of why I think this team can win the Super Bowl if they win tonight. It's just he's so good and efficient, not only in the air, but when plays break down. Some of the plays he made last week were just ridiculous. So being able to utilize his legs and extend plays is huge for Brock Purdy. His only problem, though, they are playing a Seattle defense that is 6th in total defense, 3rd in rushing defense. The Niners' offense is huge on being able to run the ball. McCaffrey, play action off of the run. 2nd in scoring defense. This is a very, very good defense they're playing. We just talked about Carolina, and obviously Carolina's offense is not on the same level as San Fran's, but they just held Bryce Young to 54 passing yards. This defense is for real. So I think for both of these teams, it's going to come down to, I know it's cliche, who can win the line of scrimmage more. This is a Seattle team that doesn't run the ball too well, if we're being honest. They have a very good 1-2 punch. It's more Charbonnet than, Kenneth Walker in terms of efficiency, but they're not a very, very good running game. It's been a lot of Sam Darnold. It's been a lot of JSN. AJ Barner is another one that's kind of stepped up huge this year for Seattle. That's them. So, I think for tonight, this is going to be two heavyweights going at it. And I like Sam Darnold to go ahead and get a chance to redeem himself from last year's kind of stinker. Not saying Seattle wins the game, but I think we're going to see some very good play on both sides from both teams today.
Yeah, you make a good point about Darnold because this time last year is where he collapsed. And a lot of the doubts with the Seattle team, it all falls on Darnold's shoulders. And I've said that so many times. If Sam Darnold plays like he has in the regular season, there's no reason Seattle can't go on and win the Super Bowl. But we saw him once in the playoffs last year, late in the season against Detroit, an opportunity to take the division and control their own destiny. And instead, he fell apart. And now tonight, we're kind of starting this again where, okay, chance to get the 1 seed. You get the 1 seed, you get the first round bye, playoffs run through Seattle, Lumen Field, I guess, not anymore CenturyLink, right? And you have an opportunity to have the NFC run through your building and take control and have a very easier path to the Super Bowl. So this is a big test for Darnold, but you're spot on with Brock Purdy because these two quarterbacks, of course, headline this matchup. I'm right there with you. Is it Brock Purdy apology? Where can I sign? Do we have to bust out the Brock Purdy apology form?
Sign here? I think so. He's for real. Brock Purdy is for real.
Yeah, because as much as we joke about Brock Purdy, and we joke a lot on the show, but you could consider him a game manager. With all the talent he had around him, the coaching he has. But watching that game last week, which was an awesome Sunday night game between, Caleb Williams and Brock Purdy, and they put up 40 points. That was the first time, really, and then even the week prior against Indy, where I saw this quarterback elevate the offense. For a while, it feels like it's been the opposite. It's been, especially when you see Mac Jones go out there and do what he did and run the offense at a competent level and they have success. And you're basically saying that this is basically what Brock Purdy does, except he's getting paid a ton more. But the last 2 weeks is really the first time that I've seen this quarterback, really the last 3 weeks, just take over and elevate this offense. Instead of this offense, this coach elevating him, he's elevated everybody else around him. And I think if you're a Niners fan, that's where you've got to have a ton of confidence. I mean, the play he made last week was Chris Collinsworth joked about on the broadcast, right? How it was very Mahomes-esque. Collinsworth, of course, was joking about how, he'd give Mahomes credit. We all know Chris Collinsworth and his love for Patrick Mahomes. But he's not wrong. That was like a Mahomes-esque type of play. That's not something I've ever really seen Brock Purdy do. That he did last week against Chicago in a big game late in the game there. So, I think you have to feel really confident about Brock Purdy and the way he's playing. And it's funny defensively that you mentioned, because this is one matchup I want to talk about, is the Niners' plan for slowing down JSN. Because game number 1, they couldn't do it. Not many teams in the NFL have been able to slow down JSN. There really hasn't been any answer. In fact, JSN, I thought this was crazy when I was getting ready for the show. JSN has led the Seahawks in receiving in every single game except week 13 when they played the Vikings, and AJ Barner led the team. JSN that day only had 2 catches for 23 yards. The Seahawks rather shut out Minnesota that day. That was the only day this season where JSN did not lead Seattle in receiving. I thought that was really interesting. He's been a monster. And what I'm interested is, we all know the Robert Saleh defense, just going back to when he was with the Jets, he doesn't let his number 1 corner travel with guys. That's never been his MO. And he was actually asked about this during the week, about having Lenore travel with JSN and matching up with him. And Saleh kind of basically said he won't do that, because then you're asking, a guy that maybe plays outside and then have to play, in the nickel, and then you're kind of getting weaker in a way at other spots. That's always been Saleh's reasoning. It frustrated a lot of us Jet fans because Sauce would never travel. And, he's obviously off the team now. But look, Saleh's defense is working. What Robert Saleh has done with this Niners defense that is without Bosa, without Fred Warner, is incredible. But do you trust San Fran to kind of slow down like the answers they have in that secondary? Obviously, they have Diamador Lenore, who is kind of their number one, if you will, to travel with JSN, have the coverage answers for him in this game.
That's so tough. I mean, JSN is one of those guys. It seems like you don't stop him, you slow him down. And now you brought up the point of week 1 now to week 18. The roster looks a little different. Now you throw Shaheed in there, so it's like if you stop JSN, you slow down JSN, you have someone who's going to run right by you. So I think San Fran is going to have their hands full today defensively. And honestly, I kind of don't want to just talk blindly into what I think they need to do. It's tough. I mean, good point that you brought up. That was actually very interesting as well, that it's only been 1 week since he has not led them in receiving. How do you stop a guy like that? Because he beats you in so many ways, and he can line up in so many different spots on the field. So it's kind of tough to game plan around that. But I guess I can say I'm glad I'm not Robert Saleh on this Saturday having to figure out how to stop JSN, because that seems like a nightmare. But, I mean, if the Niners do want a good chance to win this game, they're going to have to find a way to slow them down. Whether that's a lot of, shell coverage, playing over top, dropping one underneath, playing like a high-low. You got one over top, one underneath them. They're going to have to figure out something, because this guy, once he gets hot, once JSN gets rolling, well, good luck.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of the motto of make someone else beat you. If you're the Niners, do whatever you can to shut down JSN, because really it's not like this is a Seattle offense that's loaded. Cooper Kupp's not the same player. They did, of course, bring over Rashid Shaheed at the deadline. He hasn't been, crazy since coming over. He's been probably more disappointing than anything. I think if you look at his numbers in New Orleans and what he did in New Orleans, they were much better than what he's done now. I still don't think he's reached the end zone with Seattle. Cooper Kupp's, not the same player. AJ Barner's had some moments. We mentioned, the one game he led them in receiving. Run game wise, we talked a little about Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, Christian McCaffrey. We talk a lot about the quarterbacks, but the running backs are going to play a big role in this game as well. Kenneth Walker's had a very interesting season, because you look at his body of work and it's not, I don't know how to feel about Kenneth Walker. It's not crazy impressive, but it's okay. There's this TikTok I have to find and send it to you. It's so funny. It's this guy on Madden. He's playing with the Seahawks, and it's like he has the headset on, and he's like the guy in the booth upstairs for Seattle. Kenneth Walker will break a long pass or something, and he'll make Kenneth Walker dive out of bounds and instantly put Charbonnet in the game, because that's what it seems like for Seattle. And I know it's all jokes, it's all fun when it comes to that, but it kind of seems like, I'm right with you, the body of work, it just doesn't look as if Kenneth Walker has done much this year. But if you watch a lot of Seattle, they use Charbonnet in a lot of those, goal line situations, those short yardage situations. We're not really seeing Kenneth Walker in those, which why his numbers don't look as great. And I mean, he hasn't run the ball that great. If we're being honest, I think Charbonnet is averaging more yards per carry, obviously more touchdowns than what Kenneth Walker has. But they need to find that balance. I mean, we've talked about this before, and it's very important for teams to have two kind of change-up backs, tempo backs, and that's what those two offer you. So I think they need to get Kenneth Walker a lot more involved, not only just on the ground, but as a pass catcher. He actually catches the ball very well, especially in space. We see it, I think, was that the Rams game off the screen. He had a big catch and run. We need to see him a lot more, and just try to find more of that balance with Charbonnet and with Kenneth Walker, because, I mean, I think right now, the way that they're going about it, where Charbonnet is just the constant back, San Fran will adjust. They will find a way to stop it. We need a big game for Kenneth Walker, which another one of my X factors for tonight. Yeah, definitely. He needs to step up in a big way and kind of get back to, I had the really good game against the Rams. He had that big, what was it, 50-something yard run a couple weeks ago or 2 weeks ago now. in that Thursday night game, which was wild with Puka going off. You know, we all know how that game went. But he's only had one game this year, 2 games this year where he's rushed over 100 yards. And it's been a lot of, in the 60s and the 70s range where it's been the biggest thing with him is the yards per carry hasn't, like you said, hasn't quite been there. And with Charbonnet, it's been a little bit different. And Charbonnet kind of took over, started this last year when Kenneth Walker was out. He had some really good stretches, and he's kind of carried that into this season, taking a lot of those carries in the red zone and scoring a ton with the 11 touchdowns I believe he's at, which is comfortably inside the top 10 this season. So you look at him offensively from San Fran's perspective. I mean, just defensively for a second, it really is crazy when you look at their defense and some of the players that they're rolling out there that are playing for them, and yet they're still like, it's some of these guys you look at and you don't necessarily think they'd really be on an NFL roster. But another big game for Christian McCaffrey, I'm sure, ahead, right? I mean, he put up 140 last week. He's kind of like JSN. There really isn't. It feels like the age old, you can only hope to contain him. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. You're leaning one way in this game?
It's a coin toss. It's hot. Again, they're both on 6-game winning streaks, but it seems like more of that 6-game winning streak. Stay with me now. For San Fran, it's been more of how great the offense has been riding high. For Seattle, they've had some very good weeks offensively, but the defense has been keeping a lot of people in check outside of, I think, that Rams game where that was a shootout. So something has to give. Is Seattle's defense going to struggle tonight? Is the Niners' offense going to struggle tonight? And then, it's last year, but when you mentioned it, you go back to last year and Sam Darnold. You're like, can I trust Sam Darnold to go into Santa Clara tonight and get the job done? So it's tough. It's a coin flip, but if I absolutely had to choose tonight, I think I'm going to roll with the Niners.
Yeah, I feel like they are I don't know how I want to. It feels they're the more proven team. They have the track record, if that makes sense. Now, Seattle, of course, history-wise, recent history, they've had their fair share of winning and a ton of winning throughout that organization. But if you would to trust the coach or the coaching and the quarterback, you probably still give the edge to San Fran at home as opposed to Darnold, who, in all fairness, he's been great. And I'm very happy for Sam Darnold, and I'm rooting for Sam Darnold, but he hasn't shown you that he can win in a spot like this just yet. And until he does, you have to have your concerns. And I mean, San Fran, they have such a golden opportunity ahead of them in this game. You win this game and you're locked up for the playoffs. You don't have to travel anywhere. Seattle is 2.5-point road favorite, so it's going to be tight. And, we'll see how it all plays out. But from Seattle's perspective, tonight, if you win tonight, they really kind of they've put a lot of people on notice, but you win tonight, Sam Darnold and the rest of this Seahawks team really kind of becomes more for real, if they're able to go into San Francisco and win a game tonight like they win tonight's game. So it'll be a good one. All right, one more. AFC North, game 272. Final score prediction 6-3. Is that what we're aiming at here? Steelers, Ravens, AFC North battle. Tons of battle between these two teams over the years. Pittsburgh. It's kind of funny because, we talk about these last two games. Seattle they're red hot. Both teams, like you said, on a 6-game win streak. A 12-4 team and a 13-3 team. Then you have a AFC South game or the NFC South game with the Panthers and the Bucks, where the Panthers are, I wouldn't say red hot, but they're playing better. Bucks, it's more so the Bucks are just terrible. They're 1-7 over their last 8. They're coming off a loss against Quinn Ewers and the Dolphins, who are a train wreck. This game it's different in the fact that neither team's like red hot. Neither team's necessarily struggling. Seattle or Pittsburgh rather went on that 3-game win streak. They beat Baltimore. And then Baltimore has now turned around and beat Green Bay on the road with Tyler Huntley. And then Pittsburgh loses to Cleveland. And you have a 9-7 team and an 8-8 team. It's not like one team's hot, one team's cold. Pittsburgh had a chance to clinch last week. They couldn't. Just what are your thoughts on this one? Because this is a big one, not just for this season, but the fallout from this game could also be massive with potential organizational changes, specifically at the coaching spots with both these teams, where there's been some reports that the loser of this team coach could be canned. So just your thoughts on this matchup, because lots on stake, not just on the field and playoff, but off the field. You look at both these quarterbacks. Is Rodgers going to be back? He's on a 1-year deal. This could be the last game of his career. You now get these reports with Lamar out of Baltimore, Harbaugh and Tomlin's future. This game could completely change two organizations, depending on the result.
Yeah, Dan, that's exactly where I'm at. I mean, you kind of look at just how the season it went for both two teams, and you mentioned it. Whoever loses tonight, are we seeing Mike Tomlin back? Are we seeing Harbaugh back? Who's the quarterback? Is Will Howard the quarterback for the Steelers next year? Is Lamar the quarterback for the Ravens next year? Because with all the news that has come out, like you just mentioned, you don't know how things are going to look going into next season. And, we have joked about it. We joked about it with the NFC. I'm going to say it again for the AFC. If you're sitting at that 5 seed in the AFC and you're watching this game tomorrow night, you're pretty content. These are two teams that I think you kind of hit it perfectly. Where it's just like they haven't struggled too much, but they haven't looked great. They've been mid. The definition is both of these teams have been mid. They'll win 2, they'll lose 1, they'll lose 3, they'll win 4. Like, it's no consistency whatsoever between these two teams. And kind of tonight, I mean, you say a 63 game. I am expecting something very ugly, very low scoring. This is two offenses that just have not looked too good. I know a lot of more for the Baltimore side of it has been injuries to Lamar Jackson, why they have not looked great offensively. But this is one of those games. I mean, the NFL, you fumbled with this one. You should have put this one on at 4:30 today, and San Fran and Seattle tomorrow night. I don't want to watch a slate of football and have to watch these two have a 63 game in double overtime tomorrow. Like, that's kind of ridiculous. But I mean, for both teams, honestly, all jokes aside, for both teams, like you said, there's a lot at stake, just let alone from the playoffs going into this matchup.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because Pittsburgh's kind of on the similar path they were last year. Remember, they had that 5-game winning streak during the middle of the season. They won 7 of 8 during that one stretch, and they lost 3 in a row. And you mentioned the two teams, how high and low they are. Baltimore this year, right? They start 1-5, and then they win 5 in a row. They get to 6-5, and then they lose 3 or 4, and then they win, and now they're 8-8, and all of that. And Pittsburgh this season, it's been bumpy. They started 4-1, and they lost. I believe they went on that stretch where they lost 5 of 7, and that was the stretch of some of the Rodgers stuff. You then had that loss to Buffalo where fans were calling for Tomlin's head. Rodgers was blaming players in the press conference, and it looked like at 6-6, the wheels could potentially really fall off. And then they beat Baltimore, won 3 in a row, and they lose to Cleveland. You don't really, this game, out of all of these games, this might be the most unpredictable game.
Yeah.
What type of Lamar Jackson are you going to get? There's part of me that actually thinks Tyler Huntley gives you a better chance because Lamar Jackson has not been anywhere close to himself. And I know that's crazy that they're not going to play Tyler Huntley. If Lamar's healthy, and he is healthy, he has no injury designation, he'll be under center tomorrow night. But is he able to run it all? Is he able to do anything that Lamar at his best is able to do? What do you get out of Derrick Henry? And then from Pittsburgh's perspective, I mean, last week was so terrible, and that's not the first time that's happened where the offense just goes quiet. It happened just a couple weeks ago at home against Buffalo where they couldn't get anything going. And that's, like, we joke, but that's where you could get like a 6-3 game. because this Ravens offense has been awful this season. It's been inconsistent. And you get a Pittsburgh offense that at its best can go out there and put up points and have success. But at their worst, they can't beat Cleveland on the road. And I understand Cleveland's a good defense, and I get all that. But they scored 13 points. You want to be a playoff team, you should be able to win that game. So Derrick Henry, what do you expect for an encore? Because he is probably one of the biggest X factors in this game. The Ravens go as Derrick Henry goes. The fumbles have been an issue, but last week he put the team on his back. If Derrick Henry has a huge day tomorrow, that's really it for Pittsburgh. You can't slow down Derrick Henry, you're probably going home. And that's kind of just one of the biggest storylines in this game. Obviously, Lamar's health is big. What the Steelers defense looks like, because there has been some bad moments with this Steelers defense this year. They've gotten better as the year has gone on, but they've still had their fair share of struggles, especially early in the season with the amount of money they're spending and some of the games that they were having, some of the struggles that they were having. Derrick Henry, though, feels like the biggest X factor in this entire game.
I agree. Now, Derrick Henry, his last 3 matchups against Pittsburgh. Week 16 of last year, 24 carries, 162 yards. The wild card of last year, 26 carries, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns. The one matchup this year, 25 carries, 94 yards. So we're seeing definitely more than 20-plus touches. Continue it today. That's all I got to say about that. I'm right on board with you. I got a few X factors for this one. Derrick Henry being one of them. You mentioned Lamar Jackson, his legs being one of them. You have to use your legs. That is what they brought Derrick Henry over with, to establish a run game, a consistent run game, but also for the option to Lamar to use his legs a lot more with a lot of these read options, RPOs, whatever you want to call it in this day of age. That's why Derrick Henry is there, for those 2 reasons, to further help Lamar run the ball and get loose in open field, and just to continuously punch a defense in its mouth. So I am 100% on board with that. Derrick Henry has to touch the ball 18 times this game. Minimum 18 times this game. I mean, I know it sounds crazy because there's such like a gray area in football where you see things not working, run game, for instance, and you see the run game isn't working. You're just like, stop running the ball. Try to put the ball in the air. Try to get some momentum offensively, throwing the ball, play action, screenplays, whatever the case is. That's not the case for Derrick Henry. If Derrick Henry is sitting at this game with 17 carries for 65 yards, you keep running the ball until he breaks a big one, because he's bound to break a big one. So I think for Baltimore's case, if Lamar, which is playing, if he isn't as healthy as he may portray himself to be, and the offense can't get going, Zay Flowers is struggling, Rashad Bateman is struggling, whatever the case is, you put this game on the back of Derrick Henry, and that is how the Ravens will win this game.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you mentioned Lamar and his running ability as well. I think it's just been the injuries that have hindered that. This has to be a game, though, where he has to run at least a little bit. There's been so many times this season where he's had open running lanes and he just doesn't take them. And I think a little bit of it is just the injuries, and it's in the back of his mind and not being 100%. But in a game like this, you have to use your legs and use every tool in your toolbox as much as possible to beat Pittsburgh and go on the road and get a win here. But yeah, if Derrick Henry has a huge game, I think you expect Baltimore to win. If Pittsburgh's able to slow him down, you probably look at Pittsburgh and say they win this game. From Pittsburgh's standpoint, no DK Metcalf, which really seemed to hurt them last week because they're throwing passes to Marquez Valdes-Scantling with the game on the line. And that is just a recipe for disaster. Now, I forget, was it Gainwell was wide open? Kenneth Gainwell's been a really big piece for Pittsburgh this season from a rushing perspective and a receiving perspective. You know, we just got done talking about the running back in Derrick Henry, but Gainwell's also another piece in this game that is going to need to play a big role and has played a big role all year for this Pittsburgh offense. Your thoughts on him and Pittsburgh as a whole as they kind of pieced this together without DK Metcalf, which didn't work out last week.
Yeah, it's almost like you're reading my mind here. That was my X factor for Pittsburgh, or at least one of them outside of Jonnu Smith. But for Kenneth Gainwell, I mean, you've had 949 scrimmage yards this year, so you have been a huge part in the offense, and they need to continue that today. I mean, you mentioned it, he's been great as a pass catcher out in the backfield. You can line him up in many different ways. They have to use him tonight, especially with DK being out, and just you can't rely on anyone outside of DK Metcalf to catch a pass, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
So I think Gainwell, you got to find ways to get him involved very early because the versatility, what he brings to the offense, and it's kind of crazy to use Kenneth Gainwell and Derrick Henry efficiency in the same sentence. But if Pittsburgh wants to win, wants to get his offense flowing, you have to get him involved. Start with the screen game, those type of things. Because I mean, if we're going to rely on Pittsburgh to hand the ball off 20 plus times or Rodgers to drop back and throw the ball 34, 35 times, I don't think they win that game.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Gainwell has been big for them. He needs to be big for them in the pass game and in the run game as well, opposite of Jaylen Warren, obviously. It's funny with Pittsburgh, just the way that where they're at with this receiver room outside of DK Metcalf, because it's Thielen and MVS getting reps. Like, it's rough. You mentioned Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, two tight ends. What is your feeling for this one?
Well, there's no confidence in either team, but I think Baltimore. I think Baltimore wins this one. I mean, just the DK. I mean, this is going to sound maybe insane, but I think the DK suspension is going to probably go down as one of the biggest what ifs in quite some time. Just what if he was playing? What would be different? That's a huge factor for him to, put this team in this situation this time of the year. I don't think they can bounce back from it.
Yeah, I agree. The DK suspension, I think, is going to really hurt them. And you're going to look back on that moment and really wonder how different this would be if that never happened. Baltimore is 3.5-point road favorites. So, betting markets there tell you that they have more faith in Baltimore. This also just feels like a typical Steelers late season collapse spot. Now, the question is this it for Tomlin if they lose? Do we hear Monday morning, a couple days later? Is this the last of Tomlin in Pittsburgh? And is this the last game we see of Aaron Rodgers?
Rodgers, yes. I feel like there's no reason to come back. This team isn't a game or two away from the Super Bowl. Like this team, we talked about it so many times. We're a broken record, and I'm going to repeat it. This team they're mid. They're not good enough to win a Super Bowl. They're not bad enough to have a top 10 draft pick. So I don't see why Rodgers would come back. I mean, hopefully Will Howard, or if they draft a quarterback, if they sign a free agent, whatever the case is, as a bridge. But let's just say they roll out Will Howard next year. Hopefully he has learned enough from Rodgers in this 1 year, but I don't see why Rodgers comes back. For Mike Tomlin, that's tough.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think about Tomlin?
It's tough. I mean, it's just it's something we talk about very frequently where if you fire him, a lot of teams are going to probably write a blank check for Mike Tomlin to coach their football team. So that's a tough one because you look at it from the side of, well, hey, he hasn't had a losing season. They're getting to the playoffs. That's great. But then when the business aspect of it is, it's great. Okay, you're getting there, but you're not winning. Mm-hmm. You cannot find ways to win playoff games. You haven't won a playoff game since 2016. That's a big deal. And a lot of coaches, honestly, if you've not won a playoff game since 2016, you've not won a division title since 2020, would have probably been gone 3 years ago. Tomlin's still there, but for Pittsburgh, I feel like it's one of those things where I don't want to necessarily call it loyalty, but it's kind of like, you know what you got, and you know if you get rid of them, it's not a guarantee you find someone that can come in and bring the success that he has brought, even though we tie that in with the playoff blunders and the struggles. But a lot of coaches can't get a Pittsburgh team that we have watched get there. That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I actually think I don't know what the greater chance is. Steelers lose, Tomlin's gone, or Ravens lose, Harbaugh's gone.
Probably Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Then again, they've been so good. It's just this year's been injuries, and they've been
Yeah.
there. I mean, they've been there. It's just they get there and things don't go the way they've had drops. They've had just I don't know. That one's
They've
kind of that's tough.
yeah. They've gone a lot further than Pittsburgh has
Yeah.
gotten. That's for sure. Um yeah, it's tough. I don't know. There's part of me that's I didn't think last year. There's really a big part of me that thinks that this is it for Tomlin if they lose. I don't know why so much this year, but I do. There is a part of me now that feels like this is it. Like if they lose, would actually probably predict he does get fired. I don't know about Harbaugh. I don't know because this is only like one bad year with them, but
Yeah.
he's every year, right? We'd say it all the time, but there's always those select few coaches. I mean, we'll probably be talking about with the Bills if they lose in the wild card. Should Sean McDermott be fired? Because how many more years? Fans get impatient. Eventually, you got to try and get that next coach to get you over the hump. Pittsburgh's in a little bit of a different spot because it's not like they've been to the Super Bowl and been to the conference title game. Like they're so far away from that. Yeah, it's Harbaugh, Tomlin. This is very, very real, very possible the loser moves on from its coach. So if you're a team looking for a head coach, root for the team's coach that you don't want or want less is, I guess, the point to make. So if you want Tomlin, root for the Ravens. If you want Harbaugh, root for the Steelers.
Well, funny you say that. I was about to ask. One of those two. I think I know your answer with Mike Tomlin. If Harbaugh's available, would you prefer the Jets fire Aaron Glenn?
Yes.
Which, all right,
yes.
Then we have to finish that question.
Yes, if Harbaugh, I would fire Glenn either way. But especially if Harbaugh shakes free. If Harbaugh gets fired, I would hire him in a heartbeat. And if Tomlin gets fired, I would take Tomlin over Harbaugh. But I would be fine with both, either or. If either of them shakes free. And there's a chance that like the Steelers could win this game and get blown out in the wild card round and they still get rid of Tomlin, because that's still another wild card exit for them. I think that's what's funny about this game is this isn't the wild card. It feels like a wild card game, but this is still a regular season. So I know that's common sense, but like there is still a chance where if the Steelers get blown out next week in the wild card game, that Tomlin still gets fired. And maybe the same for Harbaugh, but I don't know. I mean, if Harbaugh gets this team with these injuries to the playoffs, I could still see the upper management saying, give him another chance. Tomlin, it's different because it'll still be the same thing every year. Get to the wild card and they'll probably lose by what? I don't know. 14, 17. Yeah, it'd be like 28-13 or something.
Look, I think I'm right with you. I see exactly what you're saying. Like, yes, it's still a regular season. This regular season game, if they win, they get in, but that does not ensure security for Mike Tomlin because if they do get in and they don't do anything with it, you're back in the same old cycle of, we got there. So, are we saying? I think we might be able to be in agreement here. Then this game is bigger for Pittsburgh than it is Baltimore.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the conclusion. If this is bigger for Pittsburgh, because I think there's a greater chance that Tomlin gets fired. And this is just me. I'm not Schefter. I don't have inside sources, right? But there is a greater chance Tomlin gets fired. And it's a bigger game because if they lose, they don't even make the playoffs, which is a step back from last year. Like, I could see Baltimore looking at Harbaugh, and if they make the playoffs and saying, all the injuries, your quarterback wasn't 100%. You went on the road in Green Bay and won with Tyler Huntley. Nothing against Tyler Huntley, but like this time of year, he's not the quarterback that you necessarily predict or want out there this late in the season. I don't think any Ravens fan envisioned them fighting for their playoff lives with Tyler Huntley on the field when this season started. I could see them saying, you won the division, you got to the playoffs. And I think, too, the Ravens could make a run. Like, the Ravens could make a run. Pittsburgh, I have no faith in them making a run. But the Ravens, I could see getting into the playoffs and at least winning the wild card. There's no chance the Steelers win the wild card next weekend. No chance.
Yeah, I mean we've talked about it. It's either going to be Houston, the Chargers,
Yeah.
Buffalo. Your best bet. I mean, you probably only lose to the Chargers by 10. Everyone you probably only lose to the Chargers by 10. The other two probably beat you by 14 plus.
Yeah.
Baltimore, the experience from both from Henry, from Lamar, from their head coach, you can definitely trust Baltimore to go get a win at home over one of those three, or at least keep it close compared to Pittsburgh, who I think the doors completely get blown off no matter who
Yeah.
they play.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think Pittsburgh is done either way. I don't think Baltimore wins the wild card if they do make it, but Lamar, Derrick Henry, the potential is a lot greater than whatever the heck Aaron Rodgers is going to do. Now they would get DK back, and that helps, but yes, this is a bigger game for Pittsburgh. The future of Pittsburgh is more drastically changed by the outcome of tomorrow night than I think Baltimore's future will be. It's, I think, a good way to put it. But it's still crazy that we're in a spot where two coaches that have been in this rivalry for so long, that this might be the end of the road. Like, this might be the last Harbaugh-Tomlin AFC North matchup we ever see, which is kind of crazy to think. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because I think there's going to be a lot of people. It's going to be that meme of that person getting their eyeballs stretched out. There's going to be a lot of that. That's like NFL fans watching Sunday Night Football tomorrow. So maybe it's a good thing that this could be the last game of that rivalry.
For either one, I mean, whether you're a Jets fan like yourself or hot take here, maybe spoiling a little something. And I'm not Adam Schefter. I don't work for, I'm not an ESPN or NFL Network insider. But whether you're a Jets fan or maybe you're a Raiders fan, you are looking at one of your two coaches tomorrow night coach their last game for their respective teams at the moment.
Isn't that a good way to look at your coach? You're looking at your future coach probably lose in a win-win scenario. Yeah, that's the life of a Jet fan. I hope that, I really hope that I would give a blank check to Harbaugh or Tomlin in a minute, but I don't think it'll happen. Just because I don't think Woody Johnson's going to make a mistake, and all the reports coming out of the Jets are that Glenn's going to stay. I would not do that, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, it's good chance tomorrow night's the last time we see Harbaugh and Tomlin face off against each other. I wouldn't say ever, because if they take a job elsewhere, they could still see each other. But in terms of the AFC North, wearing a Ravens and a Steelers cap on the sideline, a very good chance. So we'll see how it all plays out. Let's get to the underdog picks. We've gone into a lot of playoff stuff. The standings, if we want to get a little bit into some of the clinching scenarios, we talked a lot about it, with the San Francisco winning in, Baltimore Ravens winning in. They win, or the Steelers win, they're in, Ravens win, they're in. Bucks, Panthers, Bucks need the Falcons to lose and a win, so they're not quite a winning in. As a matter of fact, there's a very good chance the Falcons can beat the Saints, but the Saints are playing better football. Tyler Shuck's starting to play well. Jacksonville needs to win. Denver and New England need to lose for them to get the 1 seed. Denver, it's easy. If Denver wins, they get the 1 seed. So take care of business at home against the Chargers, and the AFC runs through Denver for the first time since Peyton Manning. New England needs a win and a Denver loss. So those are mainly the AFC scenarios, and certainly the NFC we talked a lot about. We've really talked a lot about them. There still could be some movement at the other parts here with the Texans, the Chargers, the Bills. You look at the NFC now with the Rams' recent struggles. They're the 6th seed as of now, and they're locked into that spot. So they will, as of now, they will, unless if the Bears lose and the Eagles win, they will face the Eagles in round 1, which will be a rematch, which has obviously seen a couple big games. The snow game last year, which we both agree, if it's not played in the snow, Rams win that. You had the block kick earlier this year. So just your thoughts, and then we can get into underdog picks on where the things stand with the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be much movement. Of course, just the winner of tonight's game, Seattle, San Fran, they get the 1 seed, that's going to be huge, and obviously that bye week. Other than that, I don't really see much going on. It's also kind of always tough around these years because like who's playing starters, who's not playing starters, who might play starters for a half. So kind of very tricky. But I think for the most part, it's very shaped up for how it's possibly going to be. I think the only major jump we talked about a little bit off air, Bills can possibly, I think, get 6 if the Chargers
Yeah.
lose, something like that. But not much is going to happen. Just the 1 seed in the NFC, 1 and 5 seed in the NFC, and then that 4th seed in the AFC. So I don't really see much going on. And for the most part, we have playoffs set, and next week we'll probably be back. We'll more than likely be back previewing our playoff picks. So again, luckily to get to week 18 just to see where things might still shape up. Still some important football to be played for the next 2 days.
Yes. And this is one of these weeks where if you're in an 18-week fantasy football league, you're struggling. Now, your fantasy leagues are done, right?
Yes, finished as a 3 seed in one of them, and again, I'm going to be insufferable for the next year. And then again, the other one, the money league, able to get in that last week, beat 3, 2, and 1 in that order to win the fantasy championship. I'm stress-free football this week.
Yeah. See, I'm in an 18-week fantasy league, and I'm in the championship. So we do this 2-week championship thing.
Oh yeah, I hate those. Those are the worst.
It's like my lineup this week is incompetent because Amari Hampton's out, Saquon's out, Harold Fannin Jr. is out, Javonte Williams is out. So I have Audric Estime and Dylan Sampson playing running back for me. And in my tight end is Colston Loveland, who actually isn't bad. That's not terrible. And they're still playing for something, so he'll be out there against Detroit. But, like, what do we do? I went from Saquon and Javonte Williams to Audric Estime and Dylan Sampson. Judkins is on IR. Now, that's been that way. Terrible.
I would probably consider Jaden Blue. I mean, no Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
I think Dallas is going to roll out Hunter Lipke. Jaden Blue is supposed to see some touches. I don't know if he's going to get majority of the touches. So I can look into that for you and let you know who's probably going to get a lot of the lead touches. But Jaden Blue should definitely see a high increase this week, especially since I know Dak is playing. I think Dak plays probably like a half. There's no point in risking injury for Dak. Play him like a half. Get him out of there. They'll probably see what they got in Jaden Blue. So that'll probably be a good pickup for this week.
So you think I should start Blue over like Estime?
The Saints play the Falcons.
Yeah, he had 16 points last week. Dylan Sampson didn't do much last week, but he is starting over. And they play Cincy. Stinks,
definitely will start Sampson. For Estime, I mean, the defense is good. The Falcons.
Yeah, and they're good against the run, too. Raheem Morris's defenses are always good. Now, Ulbricht's the DC, but Raheem Morris, even when he was the DC, his defenses were always very stout against the run.
I would probably go Jaden Blue again. Let me look when we get off. When we wrap it up here. Kind of just see what the expectation is as far as his carries, his touches. Because I led you astray with the Kobe Parkinson one. Even though you didn't start him, I still felt like a terrible person telling you to start Kobe Parkinson for him to do nothing.
Yeah, my fantasy advice is terrible too. But I'm up by 30. So I've got some breathing room, if you will. But my opponent, like Gibbs is playing. James Cook will probably play part of the game. JSN's playing. It's like, I don't know. It's not great. Marco Wilson is, or Michael Wilson rather, is been hot. He's playing, obviously. I don't foresee them taking him out. So, like, and then my receivers, Nico Collins, Puka, and Jameson Williams are all playing. And obviously Stafford. But you think Stafford will play the whole game? I don't know, because I don't even know either way. Because then I might want to start Burrow.
I would. Oh, that's tough. Because
I don't know if they. I don't think they can't move up or down.
Not really. No, not. I'll probably go Burrow. Burrow's been on a heater since. But then you get Burrow against Cleveland.
Yeah, I might just play
But
Stafford.
yeah, probably
Because
go with
even if he
Stafford.
plays like a half, you've got to hope that in that half against Arizona, he can throw like 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, Arizona stinks.
Yeah.
Like he can throw a touchdown to Puka in one half, you know?
What is Arizona's record? I don't think Arizona has won a game since they beat Dallas.
Yeah, 3-13. Yes, they haven't won since Dallas.
Oh, there's some things you just can't make up.
And they were 2-0.
Yep. Can't make this up.
Yeah, that's sad. Laughing through the pain.
Wow.
Anyway, let's get to our
underdogs,
picks, shall we? I'm 28-23. You are 25-26. This is it actually, because I don't think we did underdog picks for playoffs last year.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I guess we could. I mean,
yeah, why not? Why not?
I guess we could, but we'd have 3 games is a lot though. Maybe we just do 1 underdog.
Yeah.
Because then divisional round, 3 of the 4 games we'd be picking underdogs.
Yeah.
And in title game, we would have not enough. Maybe we could do like 2 underdog. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what all the matchups look like, and we'll see if we can actually buy into an underdog. Is there any chance that the 5 seed in the NFC that plays the NFC South and the AFC North is an underdog? Probably not, but that would be a very good underdog pick to take. There's probably no chance.
I don't see either AFC or NFC. Neither one of those teams should be underdogs. Both of those teams should be at least 6-point favorites going into their road matchup. Rather that it's Seattle, however it shapes up. It's just in no world, because that one's still iffy, but there's just in no world am I favoring the Ravens or the Steelers over Houston.
Yeah, the only way I could see it if it's like Chargers, Ravens.
Only possible way.
Maybe like if Lamar goes out there and has a huge game tonight and looks like himself and Derrick Henry balls out, maybe they're like a 1.5 point favorite, but even then, yeah. Anyway, we still got to get through week 18, so we'll do today's picks. Well, I already spoiled one of my picks. I had Panthers +3. But if you want to start first, you can.
All right. Well, one of those games are going to be one that we spent a lot of time on. I'm going Niners +2.5. I mean, again, just to go over it quickly, winners of 6 straight, along with Seattle. I understand that this offense has been hot. The defense is not just typical San Fran defense, but offensively, hey, we're going to score 60. Who cares if we give up 48? So I like the Niners as a +2.5 home dog to go ahead, and I think they went outright. If we're being honest, I like the Niners to win outright tonight. Give me the Niners. I'm going to go Titans +13.5. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I feel like the Titans have kind of figured things out these last few weeks. Like, they're playing a lot better than what they started the year off with. Jacksonville, I know they're locked into, I believe, the 3 seed right now, and they need a lot of help to move to the 1 seed. And I don't think those scenarios happen. The Pats aren't losing. Was it Pats and Broncos both to lose? I don't see that happening. So I think the Jags probably played T-Law and the starters for maybe a half, and then they sit them. So I'm going to go Titans as to not lose by 2 touchdowns. Just don't get the doors blown off of you. And lastly, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going to go Giants +3, +3.5, whatever it is. I understand they got some injuries, Wan'Dale Robinson's not playing this week, I believe I saw. Dallas is playing a few starters. Dak is playing. Dallas' defense sucks. So after this week, hopefully Matt Eberflus can buy a nice pit in Manhattan, Central Park, wherever it is, because you will no longer be in Dallas next year. So give me Giants +3 to cover last game of the season.
Alrighty, I'll be honest. Looking at these lines last week of the season, they're crazy.
They're terrible.
It's a sign that the regular season's coming to a close. So I already spoiled. I think Panthers +3 today. I'll also roll Niners +2.5. I don't actually love it because I do think there's a good chance Seattle wins, but it's just I'm picking it because I don't like the other picks that much either. So out of all of these ones, pick your poison. I'll take San Fran. I'm going to go AFC North, not the big AFC North game. I'm going to go Browns plus 7.5. Look, they just beat the Steelers. The Browns have kept a lot of these games close. They were close against the Bills. They were close against the Titans, although that's not, great, but it was close. They did get blown out by Chicago, but this is a the Bengals defense that's been terrible. This is a Browns defense that's been really good. So you kind of look at two teams that should be pretty evenly matched. Like the Browns should be able to move the football a bit. Bengals might have a little bit of a tough time moving the football. Anytime these AFC North showdowns happen, it's close. These two teams met in week 1. It was a 1-point game. This is basically the Joe Flacco Bowl, if you will. Brown now turned Bengal. Shador. I think the Browns have a chance. I don't think they'll win, but I could see this being like a 3-point game, a 4-point game. So I'll go Browns plus 7.5. That's actually I actually kind of like that pick. I think that's a pretty big spread, especially since the Browns only lost by 3 against Buffalo, and then they beat Pittsburgh last week. So they've got, they've kept some of these games close. Myles Garrett's still chasing the sack record, which I don't think he'll get.
Ooh,
but
really,
what is he? Does he need 1 sack?
I think half, either one or needs half.
But when's the last time he got a sack? Well, what? Buffalo game? Half a sack?
It's been a few games. But yeah, you're taking to Pittsburgh. They didn't even try to play offense last week. Their whole game plan was just don't let him get a sack. I don't think Cincy is going to focus their whole entire offensive game plan on making sure he does not get a sack.
Yeah, so I guess he'll get a sack. Either way. 23 sacks. He might have more than the Jets had to as a team. I actually should look at that.
I think he has more than the Niners, if I'm being correct.
Yes, he does. Yes, Robert's solid defenses. That's one thing they don't do. Get to the quarterback. All right. Any closing thoughts?
That is all. Enjoy your football Saturday and Sunday. Thank you guys as usual. We will catch you next week for our playoff version of Inside the Huddle.
Yes. We will catch you next week. Enjoy the final week of the regular season. Take it all in. Final full slate of Sunday games. 2 games today. And, we'll talk to you guys next week for a wild card weekend. So look forward to that. Talk to you then.